Almost all of the tadpoles have now changed into frogs, but that's given us a little bit of a problem. It's getting a little bit overcrowded in there. Welcome to Frog Watch. So for the last week or so I've been feeding them crickets and I found out some interesting information. Let's take a closer look. I tried feeding the frogs on second install black crickets, but the frogs haven't been interested. These crickets have been in the tank for several days and they haven't been eaten. The frogs tend to ignore them. I've also tried second install brown or banded crickets, which is my preferred food for them, and they've been much more popular. The black crickets have larger bodies and harder shells and perhaps are harder to eat, and the frogs have learned that they're too much effort and now leave them alone. Now the little frogs do like to climb up the side of the tank, and I guess this is just their way of trying to move on and disperse into the wild, which of course they can't do right now. And the interesting thing is I've not seen it in this many numbers. I've never had quite as many frogs in one tank before, so it could be something, maybe it's overcrowded and they're trying to get away from each other a little bit and they're trying to disperse. And obviously being inside the tank they can't do that. But this is definitely the most number of frogs I've ever had in one year, so it's a little bit of a different situation I've had before. So the plan is to separate out some of the frogs, split them up, so half will be in this tank and I'll put half in another tank. And the idea is that I'm going to feed them until they're nice, big and fat, and then once I feel that they're well fed I can then release them in maybe a week's time, a couple of weeks or something like that. We'll see how long we can keep them for. But to do that I'm going to need to clear out my other tank. Now unfortunately we have one more little resident of this tank here. This little fella is the last remaining tadpole in our tank, and he's got his back legs, but you can see he's not even close to getting his front legs, and it could be a few more days, could be a week, could be a couple of weeks. I'm really not too sure how long it's going to take him to get the front legs and be ready to come out of this tank. And unfortunately I can't wait that long. I need to separate out my frogs now. So this little fella is going to have to go back to the pond. We're going to release him back into the wild, and then I'm going to be able to clear out the tank and get it set up ready for the frogs. So as you can see, now that there are no more tadpoles in this tank, the algae has beginning to take over. They're not in there eating the algae anymore. The water's getting dirty and stuff. It's very interesting to see how clean they actually kept the tank. But yeah, that's what we're going to be doing. We're going to clear this out, and we're going to release the little tadpole back into the wild, and we'll set this up for the frogs. The last remaining tadpole is now back in the pond. I just went over there and released it, and I've also cleaned out the tadpole tank and I've set it up exactly the same as the current frog tank. And I did have a video on when I set this one up originally, so if you haven't seen that one, I'll leave a link to it. You can check it out if you're interested to see how I set this up. Pretty simple. It's just some bark, some moss, and that's pretty much it really. So the trick now is to try and catch some of the frogs and take them from this tank and put them in here. Now the idea behind that is to kind of thin the numbers out a little bit so there's not as much competition for food. Some of these frogs are doing pretty well. They look reasonably well fed and they're beginning to fatten up and get a lot bigger. But there are one or two in here which are still quite thin, and I'm a little bit worried that they are being outcompeted for the food for the bigger ones. And so what I want to do, if I can, is try and catch the smaller frogs and put them in this tank and leave the bigger frogs in this one. So there's less competition for food, and hopefully the smaller ones can eat and do a little bit better than they are right now. The trick is, it's going to be tricky to get them. They're not easy to catch, but let's have a go. Okay, well I think that's some of the smallest frogs that I've managed to get into the new tank. It's getting a bit late in the day and the light is fading, so the picture quality may be degrading a bit. So I think what I'll do is I'll hang on, I'll try and catch some more in the morning when the light is brighter. Hopefully you can see a bit better. But I'm going to give them some crickets now, because obviously they still need to be fed. I'm not going to want to wait for the morning for the light. So I'm going to feed them now, and then we'll check in again in the morning and we'll see how they're doing. So I'm feeding them banded crickets, second instar banded crickets. This means they've gone through one molt after being hatched, so they're very small. Now sometimes you do get a bit of a variety of sizes in these boxes. They don't always come out the same size, but majority of them are second instar, although I did notice there was quite a large one in there, which is also going to be too large for these ones to eat. Let's keep that closed until I'm ready to put them in, otherwise I'll jump around all over the place. They've got loads in there already. Let's give these ones who haven't got any food yet, I'll give these some. So the way I just normally do it is they come with these kind of egg box bits in them, but the crickets will all hide in. And yeah, that's not what I want to do. All I want to do is just give it a bit of a shake, a bit of a knock a few in. Okay, there's still quite a few crickets in here from when I fed them before, so we'll feed them again tomorrow, but for now they'll be okay. But these guys definitely need some. These are the smaller ones that are being a bit more hungry. Maybe they haven't been able to compete for the food quite as well because the other bigger ones have got there first. So we'll see how they do. Hopefully they'll be okay. It's the next morning and it's much brighter, so hopefully you'll be able to see what's going on inside the tanks a lot better now. So I'm going to give them some more crickets and hopefully I can catch them eating on camera. Let's see if we can get it. Well, thank you so much for watching. Hope you've enjoyed the episode. Please do come back next time and we'll see how much more the frogs have developed. Bye.